Hi, welcome to Red Eye Studios' first video. I'm Frankie.
I'm Dom.
Starting off with a little bit of like what we're trying to do with this channel. We're both working photographers, videographers, photo assistants, grip gaffers.
Bit of a Swiss Army knife.
Specifically for this video, Digitechs. We met up at RIT, going to photo school, and came down here and been working for 5 to 6 years now, about.
Yeah, we hopped right into photo assisting and digital teching right out of college. And there's been a lot of different things that we have experienced on set and working for different photographers. And to get them their expectations, we've tried to better ourselves from a digital aspect and also from a lighting and assisting aspect as too.
Yeah, our goal really is to take our industry experience and our DIY experience and combine the two, making some cool projects that result in tools that you can then take onto shoots and make your life a little bit easier.
And that kind of brings us to our first video, this Digi case that we have here in front of us.
Yeah, so I guess we'll get into a little bit of why we wanted to make this. So these exist. There's plenty of companies that make versions of this with slightly different materials or in different shapes and sizes. But the thing that we found is some of the more budget-friendly options don't have enough of the accessories and the capabilities that we're looking for, and the more kitted out options tend to cost a significant amount.
A big one that we're kind of thinking of off the top of our head is the Innovative Cart has a Digi case that they have and a bunch of different accessories for it. But if you're gonna go all out and make it exactly the same way that we've made our own here, you're looking at around $2,800. And we successfully were able to do this one for about $300, and it's got all the same bells and whistles, if not more, because we've also from experience had wanted to put in a couple different things that not even the Innovative one has.
Little bit of a insight there as far as how we work. We, own and operate our own gear, so we get rental fees, and this case has already been out on set before we even filmed this video and has paid itself back off with just the rentals on it. So that's pretty cool to get this basically for free if you have that line of income as far as gear rentals in your market.
We'll have all the different bits and bobs and pieces from Amazon to Harbor Freight where we got the stuff, all in the link below.
We do love Harbor Freight here. That will be a theme on this channel for sure.
And yeah, feel free to follow along with us and make your own.
All right, so let's get into this thing. So there's a few different components that make this a kit that stays together versus just a case that you put your laptop in. Where we started was on what it's called the Digi plate. The basics of this is it's a piece of aluminum that is drilled and then tapped to your common 1/4-20, 3/8-16 sizes, which all your photo and video gear is usually those thread sizes.
So think of your tripod plates, and when you get that new tripod and you're bringing the plate out and you have the two different screws in there to lock it in, those are your different sizes that you'll have there.
So our first go at this was mapping out where the holes are going to go that we wanted. We kind of settled on this pattern over discussing what we were going to use it for and why we were going to want it to be like that. But realistically, you can customize it to whatever you want. And if we ever wanted to, and if you want to just stop the video after seeing this, you can just put this on a tripod and put your laptop right on top of that, and it's good to go. So it's a pretty useful piece of equipment, and it just comes right out of the case, which is really nice.
Yeah, coming back to the Innovative comparison, when they sell these, you could just buy this plate if you wanted to. I mean, we've both been on a bunch of sets where, techs will try to be as skimmed down as possible. They might not even have a kit where, they'll put the laptop on here, attach it to the tripod plate, and you kind of set and done. And bare bones, it's kind of the easiest way to have your laptop there so you can successfully shoot tethered.
So getting into the actual process of drilling this out might seem a little bit like a crazy idea, and you might be thinking you need some very special tools to drill out, but not really, because This is aluminum. This is what we would recommend you build it out of if you were going to build this. Steel would be very heavy and harder to work with. And wood or acrylic, you can thread those, but the threading will probably strip out pretty fast. So this was the place that a specialty tool was. We got this thing, which is called a drill guide. And basically your drill mounts to the top of this, and then you put your drill bit in here just like a normal drill. And what this allows you to do is drill perfectly straight up and down and have a little bit more grip on this, because what you don't want is the holes to be crooked or at an angle, because then when you go to thread something in there, it's going to be going at that angle. Dom, this is actually like a good place for you to talk about, because Dom had never drilled or tapped any sort of metal. So what was that experience like first time?
I guess I didn't know that you could do it. I think it's kind of dumb now that I think back on it. Just because, like, I've only ever drilled into wood. But it was really surprisingly easy. When we were gonna go make this, we set aside way too much time to go about it, and we ended up wrapping it up in a day. Not with the tapping, but at least with the drilling of the holes. I mean, it was
half a day.
Half a day, yeah.
Dom's a little bit, there's a couple holes I could point to on here that maybe have Dom's signature on them more than mine, as far as alignment, but they still work. That's the other nice thing, is you can learn on this one. So the first ones we started with were going to be the hardest, because we're going to cut these notches out. We chose to use a hole saw, which is 100% not meant for this. Hole saws are more meant for drywall and wood. So our drill,
that bit's kind of toast.
Bit's pretty dull. And the drill was smoking, but it did get through it. And so you could, like we said, customize this yourself. But the reason we drilled these notches was because we knew that the charger was going to go underneath the plate in the case, and we wanted a nice clean area to run up to. So we kind of laid the laptop down, figured out in our planning where we were going to want that.
Before we went in and actually drilled through with the circle saw on here, was we started off with a Dremel just to kind of set up some guides, something that the saw could like actually put its teeth in before you just drop it down through. And definitely took a couple tries to get it through. I mean, the paint really made it look cleaner.
There's a couple scratches underneath this paint job.
Yeah, so if you're working on the same exact type of model that we made and you want these bits, you'll have to do some sanding and some extra dremeling when you're done, just to clean it up, but it's also not going to be perfect. Oh, grease. That was something that I didn't really even know either, but making sure that you lube up the drill bit every once in a while as you're kind of going through.
Yeah, definitely want to have some oil on hand, which you can just get at your local hardware store, but it'll just make it a lot easier. A little messy, so wear an apron. So after we drilled all the holes, the next step is painting, because you don't, just like a big warning, definitely do not want to tap the holes before you paint. And you're going to want to paint it because bare aluminum will oxidize and get kind of like black gunk all over everything. But so we took off the protective film, sanded it down, wiped it down with acetone to make sure there's no grease on it, so the paint would set up. And then we just hit it with your generic Rust-Oleum black. So yeah, so far paint's holding up. It's chipped in a few places, and we'll give it a touch up every now and then. But beyond that, like, it's gonna last longer than we do. So that was pretty good. Let the paint dry, and gave it a couple coats so it was nice and thick, and also cover up some of our scratches and mishaps.
All right, so in the next step, we started to tap all the holes with 1/4 and 3/8/16, your most used threads and bits and bobs and things that you'll need on set. And we want to be able to use this plate in many different ways, so having the different options to mount things at different areas will get us there.
Order taps right off Amazon or get them at a hardware store. You want to oil the tap every once in a while, every few holes, just to make sure it's cutting smoothly. And then we went through and used one of the double-sided like pins from stands or made for clamps to just check it as we went, make sure we didn't have any issues. But yeah, that's really where the drilling the holes straight comes into play, because then you're able to screw into a straight hole. And yeah, we just did this over a couple days, kind of in our free time, just because it's a little bit of a labor-intensive process. But yeah, so that basically covers the Digi plate. Like we said, this could be all that you do if you wanted to just get started. And this is maybe the most time was spent on this one component out of any of the other components that are in this case, but it is worth it. You do have it. We're probably going to make a few other ones of these just to have them as extra. This one could just go on a stand and be a keyboard with a monitor or something like that. But like this one will always stay with the case.
Yeah, so while this was drying, we were working on the case, and the place where we started first was this bottom cheese plate.
This cheese plate we did not build. We just bought this.
And then yeah, to attach it, we just drilled through the case, threw in the screws, the nuts, and Loctite.
Yeah, added some Loctite just to make sure that these never like wiggle loose. But worst case if they did, we could always just replace it. You got 4 of them. We did also then take a Dremel to them and cut off a little bit of an excess just to make sure that it was nice and flush. One of those things, we didn't have the exact right size bolt, and who knows if they even really make it. So Dremel would definitely be a nice thing to have on hand. If not, you might have to make a few extra trips to the hardware store to get different size. Our first attempt at this, we did just drill through the case, bolted it on, and then thought to ourselves that we should give this a test to make sure that it doesn't need any reinforcements. So we tested it out. It was a little wobbly when you put the plate in and the laptop. So we went back, and this would be maybe the other power tool that you would need is a saw, because we cut just a little piece of 1/4-inch ply to just go on the bottom for this to bolt to, so it has a little bit of an extra padding. Now, I don't know, maybe if we went big and bought a Pelican case, I'm sure they're built out of better plastic and more robust. So, if you go that route, you might not need to do it, but I would definitely give it a try before you Loctite and glue this in and cut the bolts off. Just to make sure that you're going to be safe and like how it feels. But yeah, and that was just scrap wood that we just had laying around. It's not going to be very important because it's going to be covered up by the foam in here anyways. So
I think the next thing that we really did after we lined it with the wood was we drilled out and added these feet.
Yeah, this was a like light bulb moment for me while brainstorming on this case with Dom here. Was we were like, oh yeah, great, we'll just slap a cheese plate onto the bottom of it, it'll be great. But then a lot of times you get there and you gotta, when you're breaking down, the computer's still backing up and stuff like that, and you gotta set it on a table. And when you set it on a table, now the metal cheese plate is your lowest point, so you're gonna scrape up whatever table you're on. And if you're in some celebrity's home or some really nice hotel, you're gonna get charged for that.
It's just, it's not the cleanest look. So the feet really help when I'm just like throwing it on an Apple box that's sitting on a cart or directly on a cart. So then all of the computer and the components can just stay housed in the same kit. And also it helps too if half the shoot you're sitting on a digital cart, digital capture station, and then I gotta run out and we're gonna do some shots on the street. We still want to shoot tethered. Once we installed them, we then had to take the Dremel again into the bottom of the case and just shave off like a little bit of the excess of the screw that went in, bringing it down to so it's flush with the nut that's in there holding it in.
And we also learned a valuable lesson to have pliers.
Oh yeah, keep your pliers handy, yeah.
Because the hot bit of bolt will try and melt itself through the case. So
there's a couple little dents in ours where the bottom of the screw just started melting through.
And I guess this might be a good time to maybe address this, Dom, is the viewers at home may be thinking like, well, you took this waterproof case and put holes through it. What is that? I think that's a good time to have this discussion. Yes, we did put holes through it. We made them as small as possible so that they are as, watertight or tight as possible still. That being said, one of the things we've been talking about between us and our friends that we've been bouncing ideas for this case off of is I've never been asked to Digitech underwater. If I did, that would be a different case that I guess I would have to make anyways.
Kind of a whole different discussion at that
yeah.
point. I mean,
At most, I've been caught in the rain, and in that case, this would be, nice to be able to. I could throw my laptop in the bottom of this and know that it's still fairly secure.
and I think that kind of goes into the next thing is, the power socket that we have on the other side is like, after we knew that we were going to be drilling into this thing and making holes, and knowing that it's not going to be like, totally like submerge resistant to water and leaks, how can we make this better than the ones that are actually out in the market? And again, the innovative one that we kind of model a lot of this after does not have any sort of power adapter on the outside of the case. So this again was just a hole saw lined up onto the side of the case where we knew we wanted this to go, and drilled the holes in it and just guided the plugs on the other side, the cables on the other side through the hole.
That was one of the big things that we wanted with this case, was having power run into it and just being able to keep all of our chargers safe and all that stuff. After we did the wood reinforcement on the bottom, we knew we were going to have to add some pieces of plywood for the brackets to hold the Digi plate, but we went and just added them to the other sides too, just to make sure that there's good reinforcement and it doesn't really take up that much space and just really adds in a good amount of strength to this. Like Dom was saying, we went and just got a very basic power strip, because one of the considerations that we realized that we had to do is we did buy this particular case, and we like the size of it, but one of the downsides versus a bigger, deeper Pelican is your Apple charger is, a big rectangular brick, and most power banks that power strips that we were seeing wanted to plug it in vertically, and that would totally interfere with all this stuff. So we, one of those, that's maybe one of those bonus tips to think about is, what are you going to plug in? What do those chargers look like? And is that going to interfere with the clearance that you actually do get with whatever case you have? And that was a nicety of getting the two-ended power inlet, is you now have this extra little cord in case you get some really massive, ridiculous camera charger or something like that. You have a free-floating one that you could always just take in and out. So we took this idea from the innovative company of how to let our DigiPlate sit in this case nicely. And basically all it is we went to the hardware store, we got some small L brackets that are really common, just pieces of hardware you can find. And we figured out what height we wanted the laptop to sit at, because you have the Digi plate that sits in here on top of it, so you want that to be a little bit recessed below below, and then the laptop will sit just above it. You don't want it so low that you're arching your wrists over to use the keyboard, and also give you the most amount of storage space underneath. So
we dremeled them down because they were actually a little bigger than what we needed. So we shaved off a little bit of the top and the bottom of them.
Yeah, we
smaller.
They're sold to have equal sides, and we really don't need 2 inches sticking out into here. So we shaved it down to about 1 inch on top, and then left the 2 inches to then bolt to those pieces of plywood that we put in the front and the back. And that also gets you away from adding more holes into the side of this.
Before we put in the L brackets, we used Plasti Dip, and we did a couple coats and a couple dips of that, and then hung them on with some, butcher's, string.
Yeah.
And have them, air dry right off of a C-stand arm.
That was just the foam that came with the case. We just pulled out all the interiors, put the bottom back in, and then just did a little nice edge lining so anything we are transporting in here doesn't get too banged up as it goes. And that's worked out pretty well so far. We haven't seen a need to make anything too custom on that.
Did hot glue it into there just so once we knew everything when it was locked in, we just didn't want the foam to, get tossed around too much. Keep it as permanent as possible.
So yeah, we flipped to this side and we added two things over here. We added this other cheese plate, which is another off the shelf. I think this one's Small Rigs, which they make a ton of this stuff.
Yeah.
We added that one, and we specifically added it to that side because that is the side on the MacBook Pros that we have that the HDMI cable is. And so when we're running a wireless transmitter for monitors and all that type of stuff, we can just little magic arm off to that, and it's out of our actual case, out of our way. We're not trying to clip it to the top of the laptop or put it on something else or wherever. So that this has been really useful. And one of the things we'll get into our little kit that comes with this wherever we go is a nice little J-hook carabiner to when you're in between shots or whatever, you just put your tether cable on there. So we added a nice little D-ring with quarter 20 thread right off the shelf. Put that in there, and then the next one we added was the V-mount bracket. It's a little hard for me to see, and that's so with all the V-mount batteries coming out with USB-C and USB built into them, we can now, if we're in a situation where we're not going to use the power inlet and we want to be totally battery powered, we got a nice place to throw the battery on. One thing we ran into with the V-mount bracket that we didn't foresee coming is when we started trying to line it up, the little release knob here is mounted in such a way that if you move this bracket up higher towards this ridge where we initially thought we were going to put it, you can't really reach it and release your battery super easily.
So going back into the case, we kind of go from, having just this empty lid here to housing our hood. And through there, with a little bit of gaff tape as a lip here, we're able to pop up the hood. Got some hinges in there, and we also added this armature wire to this corrugated plastic so we can tilt it up if you need it to be tilted up, tilt it down if you're tilting
maximum
a little bit.
Maximum shade there. Yeah.
And then that way it really keeps the sun off the screen.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a process to figure out what we actually wanted to do here because there's so many different ways that companies have created hoods for their cases, and we definitely knew we wanted one because we both have been in situations where you're outside, and when you're outside at noon, it's so hard to see your computer screen if it's sitting out there in the sun. It's just not going to be possible. You definitely need a hood. So we were playing around with like some sort of tent idea or whatever, but finding parts for that were a little bit difficult. And then happened upon a TikTok of a guy making a fold-out table in his kitchen to add a little space, and found out that these hinges exist. And these hinges are just basically for a lot of times they're used in RVs and ships and stuff like that. So you can fold out and fold in a table. So you want to undo that one.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two little buttons. Hit it, and it folds back down
and tucks into the case hood.
But when you fold it back up, it has a little locking mechanism. You can hear it click in there. So it's not just relying on friction or anything like that.
Yeah.
And we use corrugated plastic because it's super lightweight, super durable, easy to cut. No power tools even needed. We bought some ripstop nylon, and neither of us know how to sew, so we stop the edges from fraying with a little bit of gaff tape.
There's 2 strips of Velcro up on top.
Lines up with 2 strips of Velcro that we just stuck on here. Fold in, flip up your front, and now you got a much bigger hood that you can also drape. You got enough fabric to drape it over you completely if it's a really, really sunny day or you're really trying to check focus or anything super important.
Yeah, during a shot, a lot of times laptops in here, we'll start shooting from
there
here.
You go. Dom's gone. Yep. And he's He's off playing solitaire, but says he's checking focus or whatever. We'll get back to this just because I think we touched on it briefly, but for the bottom of this, these are just called Z brackets. I believe they're used for picture frames. Don't know how. Looked it up. It happened to exist.
We pushes it against the glass.
There you go.
Yeah,
he knows. I don't. But you can get the nice thing is you can get these in a bunch of different sizes.
Yeah.
They're cheap, and the only thing we had to do is we had to drill out the hole a little bit bigger to just make it able to accept our quarter 20 bolts. And then we bought some quarter 20 bolts, and so these are set up right now for like 3 hard drives. We have some bigger ones that we can slap in there.
We've tested them with the T5s, the T7s, and the T7 Toughs.
Yeah, right now these are set up perfectly for the Samsung ones. Yeah, we tested this out on these Samsung drives, so you'll usually have your Allen key with you, but if you don't, you can also just kind of finger loosen and tighten these once you get them in there. Slides in, tighten it back down, and there you go. You got your, right next to your little opening for the port, and as you flip up and down your case, you don't got to worry about yanking the cable or anything like that. Or if you just were running this on a tripod, you got a place to hold this. It's not like gonna fall off or anything like that. Like and subscribe if you found that this video is entertaining or useful, and like want to make one of these, and please leave comments if you think of any ways to make this better, or if you've made your own, and would love to see that. Yeah, we'll just hopefully this channel builds up with that type of community, and we can all make some cool stuff together and stuff that we use at work and makes our lives easier on set.
Yeah, keep the dialogue going. A couple of the other projects that we have in the works, we're excited to share with you guys as well.
Yeah, let's close the lid on it.